Hey, what's up? Hello everyone. My name is Marissa and today I am doing a Q&A, all things college related. I'm talking about Greek life, roommates, living and learning centers. Mostly I am answering some DMs that I've gotten on Instagram, and I believe this is going to be my last college video. I filmed throughout my college experience, moving into my first dorm, vlogs, lots of advice videos, all this crazy stuff, and it's so fun to look back on the journey. I graduated this past May. It's been a couple months, but I feel like this is the last opportunity to talk about these types of things as I move on to the next chapter of my life. Obviously, a lot of these will be related to IU or Indiana University specifically, since that's where I went, but I'll also try to make it a little more broad to be able to relate to everyone. Let's get into it. Some of these screenshots are so old, but I feel like they'll be still useful. So someone named Maya asked, how difficult is it to be accepted into the kllc? So the kllc is a living and learning community at IU, specifically for business students. I actually think it's renamed now to the JLLC, but either way, I wanted to answer this because I totally recommend living in a living and learning community around people who have similar interests to you. So at IU, they have ones for people interested in the outdoors. It's called Outdoor Adventures. I think they have one for people in the LGBTQ community. And then the one I stayed in was ones for business students, and it's just super helpful to be surrounded by people who are all in a similar life stage as you and going through the same things, maybe have the same homework, have the same interests outside of school. So as for how challenging it is to get into them, I think it really just depends. Some of them are a lot smaller than others. It also just depends on what dorms are open. So yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I will say when you're filling out the form, make sure you have a good little, it's not an essay, I think it's just a little paragraph about why you want to be in this certain dorm. Talk to people who run that dorm, talk to students who have lived there before, just be really involved and proactive, and sure then things will hopefully work out. So that's what my advice would be there. Someone named Audra asked, how exactly did you find a roommate and what do you think is the best way to do it? I'm actually struggling now to remember how exactly I met my freshman roommate, but my freshman roommate was Jenna. Shout out to you, Jenna. Literally the best roommate I could have ever asked for. It worked out super well. And I think we connected either on Facebook or the Roommate Finder app, but I would recommend, going to the Facebook page for your class, joining that app if that's still an option, joining group me's, text message groups, finding someone from a friend of a friend. There's of course a line of do you want to be with someone who you already know from your high school versus a whole new person who could, have a new perspective. That's just something for you to call the shots on. I really enjoyed getting out of my comfort zone and meeting someone outside of high school, and you can of course go completely random. That either works out or doesn't. But next question is from Pauline, and she asks, do you have any advice on how to take classes and travel as much as you have? So I am someone who's just very restless and I love travel, and that can be, a town away or a country away. So this was especially important to me because I went to a state school. I just looked for every opportunity I could, and it's pretty amazing. In college there's so much support, so a lot of the opportunities I took were either paid for or at least had some sort of help involved with it. So off the top of my head, I did 3 different study abroad programs. I had aid for the semester one, but the other 2 I think I had to pay full price, or maybe I had a scholarship. I can't really remember, but there are scholarships available. Some clubs have different conferences or case competitions, or something like that, so you could do that. I went with the Forte Foundation to New York. That was a super positive experience, and again, paid for. Are you kidding me? To New York. And then there's also different clubs you can get involved in who have trips. So I spent a lot of time with the Alternative Break program, and through them I went to New York, DC, and I was actually supposed to go on a trip to Africa, which would have been so amazing. It didn't end up going through because of COVID, but you know, stuff like that, easy to find if you're looking for it, and just again, something I completely recommend. And on another note, you can also just go on your own with friends. When you're in college, a lot of your friends will have similar schedules to you. My friends and I went to Nashville my senior year. So much fun. We also went to Canada. Decided like that week, like a Thursday, to leave on like a Friday, I think, because in Canada you only have to be 19 to drink. So we went up to Windsor. That was super fun. But yeah, you can figure it out on your own if you would rather go on that route. But again, tons of opportunities if you look for it or make it happen on your own. So yeah, if you're not in Greek life, is the social scene as fun and active? And so for context, Greek life at Indiana University is huge. It's like similar to Southern schools like Alabama and like, I don't know, those types of schools where it's just like very intense. Yeah, it wasn't for me. I have some videos about it, but I didn't end up joining one. And even though I didn't, I still had a really great group of friends. I still had lots of opportunities to hang out with people. Your freshman year, usually people just go to like house parties and stuff anyways, and then once you're a senior, of course, you can go to the bars. So IU is kind of a party school. That's just something to know going in, but of course, if you look for it, you're gonna find a party even on like a weekday. Someone asked, how is Bloomington itself? Is there a lot to do and see? There is so much to do and see. I actually have like a guide on my Instagram. If you want to look at it, it's at Marisa Logan, and you can see some of my favorite restaurants, or there's different sports, there's different like lakes. I don't know, there's like a ton to do actually, even though you're in a small town in Indiana. I loved it there. I already miss it so much, so plenty to do and see throughout every season. This next question says, in your opinion, where is the best place to live on campus? And this completely depends on what your priorities are. So I have a video that goes through every single dorm. You can check it out, the best and worst. But yeah, again, it depends on what you're looking for. I would definitely say make a list of what's important to you, whether that's price, location, amenities, a living and learning center, stuff like that, and then try to rank them and try to figure out what dorm then best aligns with those things. If you're an athlete, you're gonna want to be close to the gym, stuff like that. It just really depends on a person-to-person basis. So do the research, and hopefully you will get the one that you rank highest. Someone asked, how challenging is the business school at IU? IU is like a top 5, I believe, business school. So of course, the courses are going to be challenging, and I struggled in a lot of classes, particularly accounting and finance classes were just not my jam. It was really hard. I had to go to a lot of office hours, study extra, but I made it. You can of course try out a certain program and then switch to something different. Like I had some friends who started out in business and then went to informatics or the media school, so you don't have to stay on one path. That's why it's important to take just different classes in your interests and go forward then with what is connecting with you. So someone talked about how they were down to 2 schools, OSU and IU, and if I had any tips on making the decision process easier. I'm a big list girl, so I love making lists. As I said before, you know, what's good, what's bad, what's the most important. In the end, I feel like the best perspective to have is like, you're not gonna make a wrong decision either way. And I guess, I don't know, if it does end up being really bad at one of the schools, you can of course transfer. That's something I know a lot of people have done and still graduated on time. So, okay, this question I don't super love, but they said, I'm nervous about TAs. I'd like to know if they're mainly quote unquote foreigners. Nothing against it, but I just want to know. So I don't love the way that's phrased, but I do understand where they're coming from, and that is a big concern going into a big school if you're going to be mainly taught by TAs or graduate students instead of the actual professors themselves. And a lot of those people can be I think the more correct term would be international students, so students from countries like China or something, and they may have accents. And that was definitely an experience I had. I remember for my first semester econ course, I had a TA and we would meet on Fridays and go over class material. And she did have an accent that made it a little bit harder to understand, but that's of course something she can't help. And she ended up being super awesome. She gave us like a copy of the midterm to review for the final, and like most of those questions ended up being on the final, and like saved my butt. So someone asked for any tips or advice for someone who wants to go to IU but is out of state. They're low income but it's their dream. How do you pay for it? Thank you for any advice. I had a full tuition scholarship, but I still had to pay for room and board for every semester, and that's expensive. It's like almost $10,000 a year, which is the same as in-state tuition. I can't even imagine paying for out-of-state tuition, which I think is closer to like 40 grand a year. Like, for full transparency, I had to take out student loans. Like, I'm gonna be paying those back for a pretty long time, and I worked almost every semester I was in college. I worked multiple jobs while I was in high school. I worked in the summers, and again, I had like really good scholarships, and I think that's just because of the way college is set up now. It's super inflated and not in line with, you know, inflation, and super feel for that. I would really try to have a conversation with your parents and or other people who you could like support you. Of course, you know, apply for as many scholarships as possible, but if you like look at the numbers and you're like, I'm gonna have to take out this many loans, you really got to think that through, because, you know, interest rates are real and it's crazy how much you're going to end up paying versus how much you started with. And I just empathize with anybody else in that situation. I think it could also depend on like what type of degree you're looking at. If you're going to be in finance or tech where you're going to have like a really high salary, then that could make your payoff a little bit more worth it. You could also always go to a community college for the first year or somewhere with a lower cost and then transfer. Of course, it's not ideal, but yeah, just like having different plans or options like that, and then deciding and also doing a lot of research very early can hopefully help you. I wish everyone would be able to go to their dream school and have the opportunity for a higher education, but it just is unfortunately incredibly challenging. Okay, and then the last question I'm going to answer is, what is your favorite thing about going to school there? Yeah, now that I have my degree, it's like weird looking back, but I don't know, I just loved the spirit at IU. I loved that it had a lot to offer, from academics to sports to, again, the travel opportunities. It's just funny now, like being an alumni, which is still weird to me, that you can like wear an IU hat to the airport and like run into somebody who will probably comment on it and be like, go Hoosiers. And I just miss it already a lot, and I think that just goes to show what a good time it was. So yeah, if you can see on my bookshelf over here, I have my diploma. It's real, I made it. I'm so glad I've been able to help however many people with videos with content like this. Learning from someone who isn't getting paid by the university, doesn't have to like say things through a filter and can be very candid, is super beneficial. So I'm glad I can be that resource for you. If you have any additional questions, please put them in the comments and I'll do my best to reply. But yeah, thank you guys again for all the support on the IU vids and college vids. In the future, we're gonna have some new content coming up, and I will see you in my next video.